Hi, I'm Alison.
And I'm Taylor.
And together, we're the Anxiety Chicks.
Each week, we will dive deep into a different topic about anxiety and the real-life experiences we all go through,
while giving you all the top tools and tips you need for your journey to recovery.
Our degrees may say therapist and dietitian, but together we are just real chicks on our own healing journeys too.
Join us as we take you from panic to power and reduce the stigma of mental health. Remember, you're never alone and we're all in this together. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Anxiety Chicks podcast. I'm Alison Sepanera.
And I'm Taylor.
And we're so excited to be back today for a monthly Q&A episode. So every first episode of the month, we have a Q&A episode. If you don't know by now, we also go live every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And so I love when we go live on weeks that we're doing the Q&A, because we just have so many people that submit their questions and have all different types of concerns and anxieties that they struggle with. So I definitely stay tuned for that, because we're going to prioritize a lot of those questions on our episodes now. And we got some really great ones for today. So should we just get into them?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'll go first. So someone asked, are there any good apps for helping regulate anxiety? There are so many apps out there now, you guys. But I will say one of my favorite apps that I use and I promote all the time, not because if they want to sponsor us, that'd be amazing, but not because they do, is Insight Timer. So it is a meditation app. And if you haven't gotten into the practice of meditation or trying to train your brain to really slow down and be present, really start the practice of meditation, you guys. And Insight Timer is my favorite because it actually has like these mini courses on how to meditate. Basically, if you're a beginner, they have mini courses on what you can do to start the meditation practice and how to actually make it like simplify it a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it's hard. It's hard. I don't know if you've ever tried to meditate, or if you meditate, or
yes.
How has it been for you? Was it hard to get into it?
I think just like finding what worked for me was the best. I think there's so many different kinds of meditation and so many modalities that finding just what works for you. Sometimes there's like goal setting ones. I like how my Aura Ring provides meditation. You can like click into this reset and restore part of your Aura app, and it basically tracks your metrics while you're doing the meditation. So you can kind of see like, oh, before this meditation, my heart rate was a little higher. I felt a little stressed. After this meditation, my HRV and my heart rate were both restored, and I went to a more relaxed state of mind. It's yes. Very interesting.
That's so amazing. Yes. So that's actually something that I provide as far as like education and resources in my book. So I'll tell you some more apps, because I have a whole list of apps in, I don't even know what chapter, but in the Anxiety Healer's Guide, that is like 2 different pages of apps that are specifically geared towards helping regulate your nervous system. And so I talked about Insight Timer. I also would suggest, which you may have heard of, like the Calm app, right? Insight Timer, another thing that I love about Insight Timer is that it actually has a search button. So depending on the type of anxiety you have, at that moment, it actually helps you have a search button, and it gives you hundreds of meditations by length. If you want a 2-minute one, or if you want a 10-minute one, or a 20-minute one, depending on what you're struggling with at that moment. So I have a whole playlist saved of just health anxiety meditations. I have a whole playlist saved of waking up in the middle of the night anxiety, right? And different meditations for that, guided and not guided. I'd have like body, and they don't just do meditations, they do body scans. They have like progressive muscle relaxation guided meditations. I have a whole playlist on travel anxiety meditations. I have a whole playlist on like self love and manifesting. So you can organize them so wonderfully and do all of that. So in the Anxiety Healer's Guide, so there's the Calm app, there's Headspace, um, there's a lot of different types. I'm trying to find the page, but anyway, we're going to go to question 2. But whoever is listening or watching this, if you want kind of a list of those apps, well, you can go grab the Anxiety Healer's Guide for a lot of tools. But send me a DM at the Anxiety Healer, and I'll send you more of the names of them. I know that Insight Timer is just like one of the best.
Nice. Okay, next question. This one was definitely backed up a lot on the live. A lot of people experience it. How do I exercise when I get severe anxiety? I love running and had to give it up due to panic attacks. I also loved running, and I've always been an athlete my whole life. So when I started experiencing health anxiety and panic attacks, I truly didn't think I could even go check my mail without feeling like I was going to drop dead at any moment. I felt like the second I started walking or even just going up the stairs in my parents' house, that I felt my heart rate just spike very, very high. And it felt so much like the panic attacks I was having that I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to have the feeling. I felt like when I felt that, I just spiraled into another panic attack. So I just got to a point where I didn't want to do it. And I had this huge fear that if I did get my heart rate up, that my heart would stop. And basically, what helped me and what I recommend to you guys is find a cardiologist you feel comfortable with. If you're really having these thoughts about your heart's not okay, you don't feel like you feel like something bad is going to happen to you or your heart's going to stop when you start exercising, find a cardiologist you trust, go to them. They will do the tests they feel are necessary to pass you to be able to exercise. And then I promise you, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, you need to go exercise. You need to take care of your heart because your heart is a muscle. And I remember this moment of I got tests done. The test came back fine. They said nothing's wrong with you. Your heart is healthy. And I left and I didn't really trust what they said. So, you know what? I had to get a second opinion. And then one day I remember I was going on a walk and I was like, Taylor, you have done all you can do to ask the questions. You have gotten all the tests you can get. You have done everything that you can, but what you're not doing is you're not taking care of your heart. Your heart's a muscle. It needs to be exercised just like the rest of your body does. And so I remember I started on this walk, which going on a walk was a lot back then. I started running, and I remember while I was running, I was like, you've done all you can do to control what you can. And so at this point, you literally just have to accept what is. And I had to accept that I've done all I can. And if I was to just drop dead in that moment, then that I tried. And I remember just getting to a point of just letting myself feel that. And I think I like even cried on that run because I was just like, wow, I like really just accepted dealing with anxiety. I accepted the fears. I accepted that I wasn't comfortable in my own skin in that moment, but I did it anyways. And I can tell you after that run, I felt good because when you exercise and you get your heart rate up, you excrete endorphins that are feel good hormones. And so exercise and moving your body, it is so good for you. But if you feel those fears, there's no shame in getting it initially checked out. However, after you're told, hey, we've done all the tests, everything's good, you have to find within you a sense of acceptance of what is and knowing that running and all of that is so good for you if it's something you love.
I love that. I also would suggest that uh, this is hard because a runner really is, they enjoy something. I've never been a runner, so I don't know what that like quote unquote runner's high is like, but I know that it's very real for a lot of people. So it would be disappointing if, but I think your tips are really great to try and kind of ease back into that. But I'd also kind of acknowledge that, anyone that really struggles with this sort of fast heart rate or the heart rate usually increases when you're doing some type of exercise, start slow. I mean, there's so much movement that is possible that is still really healthy for your body that doesn't include like this high intensity workout. So you can start, I'm not saying that you won't ever get there, but just maybe start slower, right? With some different types of movement and um, just kind of like get back into it, ease back into it in that way, you know?
Yeah, no, runner. I've been an athlete my whole life, like I said. So there's definitely something for me personally, a yoga class versus like me doing a intense workout or running that I just love it. I love the feel. Like if you love it, it's definitely depressing when you can't when you mentally feel you can't do it. I remember feeling like I love nothing more than just going out, running in nature, getting my heart rate up, sweating, and that feeling afterwards is just like so therapeutic for me. And so when I couldn't do that, it was really bad. I definitely felt like it hindered me, but I also just couldn't do it because I was so scared. So
Were
getting
you
back to, I
able,
mean, now I'm fully, yeah.
was there anything that you were able to do in the meantime, or did you just kind of stop?
I mean,
Oh, okay.
even walking up the stairs in my parents' house, even getting up off the couch and going to the restroom, my heart rate would spike. I was just in such a
Okay.
dysregulated state of
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like I said, going and walking to the mailbox or taking my dog out, I felt like my heart rate went to 200. It was ridiculous
Yeah.
at that time. Even a hot shower, I felt like I was just so hyper focused on my heart rate, and I think a lot of people relate to that with the like extreme panic disorder and health anxiety. You're just so hyper focused on your heart rate that any change in blood flow in your body, such as getting up off the couch, standing up. That's why I literally just wanted to sit on the couch all day and not move or lay in bed all day because I was so scared of just life. I was so scared of a normal bodily function, which it's funny. I used to literally feel every single heartbeat that I had. Like I felt my heart rate all the time, all day long. Now I barely notice my heart, but it's just so interesting. It's so interesting thinking about how down bad I was then and just how far I've come. I mean, I work out very, very hard now. And so don't give up on yourself if you're listening to this and you feel like it's been stolen from you. I felt the exact same way. There's a way to get back into it, and this isn't your life forever. So don't give up on
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because like that type of like what you're talking about with that racing heart, that happens to so many people when they're not even moving their body. I mean,
Hmm.
literally, that could just, you could feel like you ran a marathon and you're just sitting on the couch. That's how anxiety works, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely important to obviously get whatever you're going through and the anxiety that you're feeling under control, and just giving yourself grace and patience throughout that for sure. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, my next question is kind of like connected to like somatic things. So someone asked about reflux and the connection that reflux has with anxiety. You know, this isn't going to be a long-winded answer because we've talked a lot about this in other episodes, but when you think of reflux, you think of, having part of your throat feeling like it's closing, right? Or you're kind of like burping a lot, or there's food that's not going all the way down. I mean, I remember my worst panic attack, one of them, actually, I've had like three, was because I actually had this like horrible reflux GERD episode where I thought I was choking, but really food was just like stuck in this part of my throat that wasn't the part of my throat that actually was blocking me breathing. It was like a different part of my throat because I could actually still breathe. So it was actually just, I wasn't choking, right? It was just kind of like stuck, my throat was inflamed, and I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle at that point. So everything was inflamed in my body. And of course, having anxiety at the same time, it created this constriction in my throat even more, because when you have anxiety, it makes your muscles tense up. And so that was such an eye-opening situation for me, because now I have learned so much about the connection between anxiety and reflux and the gut. Of course, we know, right? It's all connected. And so some things that can be really helpful when if you have been diagnosed with GERD or reflux, um, we talk about the word mindfulness all the time, right? But you have to think of what that word means, okay? there, if you've never heard of people who talk a lot about mindfully eating, it's a very real tool and exercise that's going to be helpful for anyone that struggles with reflux. So essentially, you really want to eat intentionally. So you want to make sure that you're eating all amazing foods, right? I mean, this is like anything anyone would tell anyone, whole foods, vegetables, there's certain different foods that are more inflammatory. Of course, I'm not going into that, but I will say chew your food. If you have to count to 50, chew your food, take one bite at a time, eat a couple small meals throughout the day, like I think they said like 5 small meals. Um, Breathe as you're eating. Put your fork down. Put whatever your hands, like if you're eating with your hands, put the food down after you take a bite. Chew it fully. And your brain is going to send your body signals to slow down if you're doing that more intentionally and mindfully. And it's also going to help your gut realize that it can more easily digest your food. So I've, and that can be really hard when you're really hungry because you're so hungry, which is why they recommend eating like 5 small meals a day if you have GERD or reflux. I also, smoothies have like saved my life. So I have smoothies a lot. Um, Especially when I'm so aware now, I'm hyper aware now of when I feel that my throat getting a little tighter. And all of this is really connected with also the trauma of me going through that panic attack. It was so scary thinking I was like choking. So now I really think about what I'm eating. I sit down also when I eat. I don't eat past 8 o'clock. Intermittent fasting has been so huge in helping my reflux. So I don't eat past 8 o'clock and I don't eat till like 12 the next day. That's not ideal for everybody, but I will say it has been a game changer for my reflux. So I think if you just don't eat, if you make sure you stop eating late, like past 7 or 8 o'clock at night, that's going to be really helpful, whether you intermittent fast or not. So that's just what I'll say about that. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I work with a lot of patients with GERD, especially in the anxious realm of GERD. I think even if you are just anxious person, you might not exactly have GERD, but you might experience the symptoms of it because, like Allison said, a lot of times we don't realize that we're anxious eating either. They even recommend don't watch anything that's on TV that's high paced. Don't scroll your phone while you're eating. Like Allison said, the word mindfulness really just, if you slow down, and I think a lot of people don't realize how fast they're eating and how much they're swallowing at once. Like if you put a piece of chicken in your mouth that you cut, right, a normal sized piece of chicken, most people who are anxiously eating are chewing that about 3 to 4 times and then swallowing it. And you could probably feel like when you swallow it, it's a little bigger, or you're like, oh my gosh, I was just eating so fast. And I think we live in such a fast paced society that we have to like get all these things done and do all these things that we're standing in the fridge, we're grabbing things, we're eating so fast, we're walking around. You really need to like make eating a safe time to really sit, have your meal. And then even if you do that, you're like, hey, Taylor, like I'm still really dealing with these symptoms. Okay, maybe you're a little more sensitive to high fiber foods right now. So cruciferous vegetables, or you have, I even always tell people to do a stool sample, get that tested because you might have a bacteria overgrowth of SIBO or H. pylori. I see that a lot. And a lot of times that can even cause anxiety. So if it's really a bother to you, first I would look into your gut, the quality of it. And I think a lot can be shown with just a GI map stool sample. That is my go to. And then once you have that figured out, okay. Or I would do the mindfulness eating first. And if you don't see any improvement from that, then you can look into digging deeper. Hey, do I have something more going on? So, but I think getting a hold on your acid reflux or GERD or those type of symptoms, if it's something that's happening to you every single day, you really want to get a hold on it and you don't want to let it go long term. It just can it can it can even inhibit the way you're absorbing nutrients. So it's just really important to get a hold on that. And Allison is so right. You never ever, if you struggle with any type of acid reflux, please do not eat and then go try and go to sleep. Because that is just an acid little river happening.
Yeah.
So,
Mic drop. Okay.
Okay, next question. I have found that I have developed more irrational fears around being unable to leave a space or feeling stuck. Airplanes, elevators, doctors' offices, and even getting my hair done. What could help this? I also relate to this question. I think when my anxiety got really, really bad, is when I started almost developing this borderline agoraphobia. Everywhere became an unsafe place to me. The only place that felt comfortable was literally just being home. Anywhere I went, it was like I just marked it off the list. Like I've said before, having the panic attack in PetSmart, I think that was like the threshold for me that things are down bad. Like, how can you have a panic attack in PetSmart? It's such a happy place. I love animals. So I think the biggest thing that helped me with that, this person saying they're developing even more, so that means more places are being checked off of their list. The best thing I ever did was go to these places that I've deemed I can't go, or I will probably feel that anxious feeling and want to leave, is going. No, knowing ahead of time, I might feel that feeling. If I get there and I feel that feeling, accepting the feeling for what it is, r- rewiring the brain that I'm not in a current set of danger. I think a lot of times when we leave these places and we reaffirm that thought that, oh my gosh, something dangerous is happening, we make the anxiety worse. So every time I've left a place because of the anxiety and I've gotten home and been like, I've basically told my brain, good job, we avoided that danger. We don't know what the danger was, and there probably wasn't one, but we've basically reaffirmed the brain that we escaped danger that day and we're very proud of ourselves. But when we stay and we show the brain, hey, look, we made it through, nothing happened to us, we walked the aisles, we might have felt a little uneasy, but we did it, we made it through, and we made it home, and we're fine. You also reframe that the brain in that setting of, hey, there was nothing to be dangerous of, my body misfired, I'm okay. And you really show yourself. And there's also just a sense of strength of like staying when you don't want to, because it's very easy to just get in the car and zip. And I did that so many times in the past and it never did anything good for me. It was just a sense of a negative coping skill. And it made things worse. So, really challenging yourself to just stay, feel the panic and stay, even if you don't want to. I promise you almost have to get to it's that, once again, the acceptance theory of like,
Mm-hmm.
if I just drop dead in this store, you know what I used to tell myself, actually, what's funny, I used to be like, you know what, PetSmart has an AED, they have a defibrillator, so I'm actually better off if I drop dead here than getting in my car like I think I'm about to just drop dead. If I get home, I don't have a defibrillator there, so hey, drop dead, body, right? Show me you can drop dead, because you're not going to, like the likelihood of you're not going to,
Yeah. Well, and that's that, like what you just described is actually part of exposure therapy. So, for a lot of people that have severe phobias, right, or tend to really avoid certain situations because of that reason, then, the exposure is to eventually kind of confront that fear and move through the fear and sit with it and methodically and strategically, right? Not just going to throw you to the wolves, but to really sit with the fear of when you're in certain situations. So, faux show. Okay, here's my next one. All right, so someone asked about some tips if they spiral, if their brain starts spiraling right before bed. Um, and a couple people said this actually in the chat. And the thing about it is we do have an episode I feel like we've talked about how to kind of help yourself through nighttime anxiety, because it looks different for everybody. But for someone who actually spirals before bed, I can imagine it's really hard for them to get to sleep, right? Like for me, I can fall asleep, but I do wake up in the middle of the night a bunch of times. So my brain almost spirals more when I wake up and I'm just like, oh my God, what is going on? I need to go back to sleep. And so, both of those suck. Okay. But for someone who I feel like has really bad anxious spirals before bed, it's going to be really, really important for you to get clear with what thoughts that are spiraling are the loudest, right? So this is very sort of the cognitive therapy of me to say, but I want you to get clear with what thoughts are loud, and I want you to write them down, and I want you to start identifying which thoughts that you can pick out and how true they are. So I want you to ask yourself, like, how true is this thought right now? Right? Is it 1,000% true? Okay, well, it's not 1,000% true. Why not? Start challenging the thoughts that you have. Okay. This might be hard over the first initial couple days of, trying to figure out the spiral, because some of these spirals can lead to insomnia, right? And then you're just up thinking about the same thing for hours. And then you're starting to spiral now about not sleeping. So then there's like a whole nother layer. So get clear as you start winding down for bed. First of all, having a bed nightly routine is going to be huge. I talk about sleep hygiene all the time. Make sure you have a routine and you start getting your body and your brain settled down for bed. Don't be watching, 3 hours of TV. Don't be scrolling on your phone. I know everybody does it. I'm guilty of it sometimes, but make a point to shut your phone off and either read a book, or do a meditation, do some stretching, get this routine. Also, think about your room environment, right? What is it like? Is there a lot of light? Is there a lot of noise? Like, try and get an eye mask or a noise machine. And what's the temperature like? Try and really focus on the environment of your sleep, like where you're sleeping. I mean, it's really going to be important to, that's part of sleep hygiene, to understand more about the environment. Um, but this cognitive exercise is really helpful because it can start diving deep into the root of your anxieties, especially at night, right? So, are the thoughts that are the loudest about the next day? Like, are you like, what if this happens? What if this happens? You're thinking about something for the next day. Are you getting anxious about not knowing if you're going to sleep that night, right? Or if you're going to have insomnia? Um, are you going to are you thinking more about, things that happened that day and you're doubting yourself or something someone said? Think about, just process through what the thoughts are the loudest and really challenge them and ask yourself, how true is this? And is this something that I can say, for example, this is another exercise I do. Is this something that I can put into my worry time? So sometimes I'll um, assign like a task for a client and I ask them to choose a worry time every day. And it'll be maybe like a half hour. And I'll say, well, what time do you want that to be? And some of them will be like, okay, how about like, 6 o'clock when I'm eating before dinner, whatever. So I'll say, okay, set your timer for a half hour. Sometimes I'll say start for, 10 minutes, and you worry about anything you want. Literally sit down, set your timer for 30 minutes, tell your brain, all right, brain, let's just worry. Tell me everything that could go wrong. What is the worst thing that could happen tomorrow or in 5 minutes? For a half hour, you get to worry about anything you want. And then when that timer goes off, that's it. Right? So you need to kind of chunk your time and you think about, okay, can I put this in the parking lot, of my worry time? That's what I call it. Okay, I'm going to think about it tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Right now, I'm packing it in, putting it in my suitcase, and I'll unpack it at 6 o'clock tomorrow during my worry time. And that actually has been really helpful for a lot of people. So, those are just some of the suggestions that I have for sure.
I like those. Okay, my last question. How to deal with when you're waiting for a result on a routine test. I think we've touched on this before a little bit, or maybe I did on my stories, I can't remember, but I think this goes into that mindset of what can I control versus what I can't control. I think that a lot of people who deal with health anxiety, they either compulsively go to the doctor a lot or they completely avoid the doctor. And so when we completely avoid the doctor and then one day we decide to go get that routine test, there's a lot of buildup because we've been avoiding that doctor for so long that we think the absolute worst. But I also think that when we avoid the doctor for so long, I firmly believe people who are scared to go to the doctor because they're scared of the results they might get, they still live with that fear every day, thinking those results are going to be bad. I see this with my mom a lot, and I tell my mom this. I'm like, okay, you don't go get a mammogram because you think you have breast cancer. And so you don't want to accept, like, you don't want in your head to get the actual result, but you live with the fear every day. It's almost worse to me to live like that rather than going, knowing, hey, I'm approaching the fear. It feels very scary. I have a lot of thoughts about what these results might say. I fear they might be bad. Voicing that is perfectly fine. Voice it, do the test, and then accept that you are doing all you can do to control. You have to let go of everything you can't control. What you can't control is what those tests are going to say. I mean, you can put in all the work on trying to eat healthy, trying to live your life best, avoiding bad things, but you can't control what the test result's going to say. Like once you've given the blood, done the exam, it's done. Like you literally have to do the test, wipe your hands clean and walk away and say what's meant to be is meant to be. It's 10 million times harder done than said. I get that. But that's just the only way you're going to get through it. And also if you're just spending all your time worrying about it before you get the test results, say the test results are bad, you spent 2 times worrying, or say the test results are good, you spent so much time worrying about something that ended up being fine. So it's like, wait until you get the results and then allow yourself to worry or panic about something. But until then, you're not allowed to let yourself worry.
Yeah. And I was just looking at our episode. So, episode 31 is all about health anxiety waiting for test results. So, definitely check out episode 31. That was back in good old 2021. Um, but yeah, I think that, you just have to think about it as what you, it's better to know sooner than later. That's what I say. It's better to know sooner than later because if you know something sooner than later, then they can start treatment. You can start treating something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's hard to do that, I know, for so many people, but you know, really just knowing sooner than later could, depending on what's going on, could add so many years to your life, or it could
An
give you.
easier treatment plan,
Right.
all
It
the
could give
above.
you a
Yeah.
treatment plan of a team of people. You know what I mean? So,
I literally tell myself that too. I'm like, you can't avoid the inevitable. Like if something is happening, that then you have to get it done. Like, it's
yeah.
there's nothing you can't not get the test, say for breast cancer, for example. Me sitting at home not going and getting my mammogram isn't preventing me from getting breast cancer. Do you know what I mean? So it's I don't know, it's really tough. It's really hard if you struggle with health anxiety. The hardest part is truly the fear of you going. And I think once you go and you get it done, you will feel so proud of yourself. And then I think even once you get a really good test exam after doing something you were really scared of, you will feel like $1,000,000 because you did it. You faced that
Yeah.
fear, and then the relief of just like, hey, look, I did it and I'm okay. Because a lot of times people are living with that fear of they think they have something and maybe you don't.
Yeah. 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 I agree. And check out episode 31. Honestly, we dive all into this topic. And even though it was a couple years ago, I still remember it. I still remember recording this because I used to be somebody like that. And now sometimes I go to like all the opposite end now because I'm getting like 5 tests a day. And I'm like, wait, that's not good either. Okay. So it's like, um, okay. Anyway, okay. So that's our episode. That's our Q&A episode. Um, there is one other question that someone asked about, and it's about medication. And I just want to, just say again, I know I kind of say this disclaimer all the time. Taylor and I are not medical doctors. Okay. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't prescribe medication. So any questions that you have that deals with, wanting to know more about specific medications, you really have to ask your doctor or ask a psychiatrist, and make sure you give your questions to the medical doctors, because we definitely don't want to give you any type of information that could be misguided. So That being said, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week, and we'll see you next month for the Q&A, but we'll see you next week with an all new awesome episode. All right, you guys, happy healing. Love you.
Bye.